Good afternoon. Would you like to see a miracle? Yes. Yes. Some people said yes. Some people not so sure. Do you want to see a miracle? Yes. Better. Good. In that case, every single person, please stand up. Come on, let's not groan. Every single person in the room, think of one playing card. Get one card in your head now. Lock it in. Let's start with the two most obvious cards. The two most obvious cards are the Ace of Spades and the Queen of Hearts. If you're thinking of either of those two, sit down. Perfect, thank you for your honesty. Yes, 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 good. In which case now we have a complete random selection. So I would like everyone in the room to sit down except for this lady here in the striped top. If everyone could sit down except for her and give her a round of applause, that'd be lovely. Let's get a microphone to you. Hello, my name is Ben. What is your name? One more time. Benedict. We'll get the mic on in a second, Benedict. But Benedict, be honest, have me and you set this up? No, that was, otherwise we'd have practiced the mic thing a little bit. Benedict, lovely to meet you. You are thinking of a card. My job is to guess the card in your mind, Benedict. So it could have been a red card or a black card. Don't tell me. Good. All right, I think I've got it. I'm going to tell you the card in your head. Please be honest. The card in your head, Benedict, is Seven of Hearts. No. You can't hear it in the mic. She said yes. No, she said no. What was it, Benedict? The Five of Hearts. Five of Hearts. See, here's the weird thing. Before I met any of you this afternoon, inside here, I turned over one card. And I'll do this as slow as humanly possible. I will literally take the cards out of the box, and you will see how there is one card the other way round. There was no funny business. And it was Thank you, Benedict. Thank you. Now, I have a confession. That was not a miracle. That was not a miracle. It was a very, very basic card trick. However, within 2 minutes and 12 seconds, I was able to walk on stage in front of a room full of strangers and somehow get them all to engage and connect with me. How did I do that? Well, the answer is, just then, during that 2 minutes and 12 seconds, I used 7 techniques. And as a magician, I shouldn't normally share my secrets, but today I'm going to make an exception. Before I do that, though, why do I care so much about creating engagement and connection? To understand that, we need to go back to 2009. I used to live in Birmingham. I was a recruitment consultant. I was renting a flat in Birmingham. And one day I went to work and I quit my job to follow my passion of being a magician. And then I realized I've got rent to pay, I need to pay the bills, so I thought I'd become a street performer. I lived half an hour from Stratford-upon-Avon, so I got in the car with my table and all my tricks, my show, and I did my first ever street performance. And that day, the biggest crowd I got was 6 people. Thank you for laughing. It was awful. Terrible. And I went home that night, and in my flat on the table, I counted up all the money I made, £18.50. Not good. And I knew I was in trouble. And that day, I learnt the most important lesson you can learn as a performer, and that is, it doesn't matter how good my tricks are. If I can't get my audience to engage and connect with me, then I'm toast. So the next day, I went back to Stratford with that goal in mind. How do I get people to stop, engage, and build a connection? And throughout my career, and by the way, I should also point out that I realized quite quickly that is a skill. And like any skill, you can practice it and you can improve. And throughout my career, I've applied that skills in all sorts. For example, I was a TV presenter, and I used to have to look down the barrel of a camera and make sure the person at home was engaged and connected with me. Or now, I'll often get booked to perform at corporate events. 500, 1,000 people. I've got to walk on stage and instantly get them to stop and engage and connect. But interestingly about this skill is you can apply it to any interaction. So obviously in the workplace, doing presentations, or in meetings with clients, or in social environments, or arguably most importantly of all, if you're ever meeting your partner's parents for the first time, you need to get them engaged and connected. The quicker we can do this, the quicker we can progress all our relationships. So, I'm going to share with you those 7 techniques that I used in the first 2 minutes and 12 seconds. And my goal is that you will be able to take some of those techniques away with you and apply them to your interactions. Does that sound good? Yeah, we'll see, won't we? Okay, right, we will begin. To begin this, we have to rewind back to the beginning. A few moments ago, I walked out on stage, and you're going to have to help me with this. It looks something like this. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ben Hanlin. Deja vu. Now, be honest, when I stood here the first time a few moments ago and I did this, who here, by way of a show of hands, made some sort of assumption about me, good or bad, before I'd even opened my mouth? Yeah, quite a few. You're not alone. Because apparently, when it comes to first impressions, studies suggest that it only takes 7 seconds to form one. And in those 7 seconds, when you're forming the first impression of somebody, 55% of that is made up of non-verbal cues, what you see. And you are trying to analyze if the person in front of you is competent, if they're in control, if they're threatening or non-threatening. So I knew that, and I applied technique number 1, confident body language. And I can break this down into 3 simple little tricks. First of all, eye contact. From the moment I stepped foot on this stage, I made eye contact with all of you. If I'd have been walking like this, I'd have looked insecure and not in control. Second of all, I had open body language. This dates back to when hundreds of years ago we were trying to work out if the person coming towards us is friend or foe. Are they concealing any weapons? I wasn't. You can trust me, there's nothing to hide here. Open palms. And thirdly, I wanted to show you lot that I was non-threatening. So the way I did that was smile. That's it. And imagine if you saw me at a party or a social event and I wasn't doing those 3 things. If I was stood there not making eye contact, with closed body language, and also not smiling. Not very approachable, and also not the best first impression. So for those first impressions, confident body language. The second technique I used was forcing you to be present. Just because you were looking at me and clapping, it did not mean that you were present. According to a study by Queen's University in Ontario, the average human has over 6,000 thoughts per day. Which means, even though you were looking at me, you may have been thinking about a notification that just went off on your phone, or an email, or thinking back to a conversation you had a few minutes ago, or if you're anything like me, you're thinking ahead to, what am I going to eat for dinner? That man knows, yes. I don't know what you were thinking, but what I do know is I have to disrupt that thought and force you to engage with me. So the way I did that is I began with an interesting or engaging question. I asked, do you want to see a miracle? And most of you said yes, which was very nice. But there were still some people in the audience being passive. And I didn't want that. I wanted you all to be engaged, so I asked the question again. Second time, more people got involved. The energy increased. So, when we're going into our interactions with audiences, big or small, if you can start with an interesting or engaging question, you are going to disrupt that thought and you're going to force them to be present. Technique number 3. I got a physical commitment from you. I asked you all to stand up. I didn't need you to stand up for the trick to work. However, I wanted to get a physical commitment from you. This dates back to an old street performing trick. If I was on the street and there was people at the back of the crowd, what I call the stragglers, they're standing there with one foot in, one foot out, deciding should they stay and watch the show or carry on walking. So what you do as a performer is you ask everybody at the back to take one big step forward. The moment they do that, they physically commit to the show and they look at you and engage and they're present. So you can get physical commitments in different ways. I like to do this a lot when I'm with different size audiences. For example, if I was doing a toast at a wedding, the first thing I would do is I would stand up and I would ask everybody just to turn their chairs this way to face me, to see me clearer. And in that turning of your chair, you're making a small physical commitment to me to engage and be present. Also, what's really amazing about this works when you're talking to one person. Imagine if we're at a busy networking event and there's lots of distractions, because there is. It's a lot going on. It's very hard for me to hold your attention. So what I might do, if I really want to connect with the person in front of me, I would say, hey, do me a favor, I really want to hear this. Can we just take a big step over here for a moment? The moment they take a big step towards here, they are choosing to physically commit to this conversation. And it forces them to be present and ignore all the other distractions. All right. Technique number 4. I was just having a moment to be present. And speaking about being present, technique number 4 is that I was 100% present. As a performer, one of my big jobs is to make sure that every performance feels fresh for the audience, that I'm saying it for the first time. And the thing I have found as a performer, the best way I could ever do it, was to make sure that for every performance, I was 100% present every time, in the moment. And in our interactions, we know when we're speaking to somebody, if you're talking to them and their mind is elsewhere and thinking about other things, we can sense it. For example, by a quick show of hands, who here has ever been on a virtual call and been having a meeting with somebody, but at the same time been emailing somebody else? Naughty people. Were you being 100% present? No. And let's flip that. When that happens to us, either online or in person, and someone isn't being 100% present, how do we feel? Well, we feel undervalued. We feel like that person doesn't care about us. So we need to be 100% present both ways. How do we do it? It's really simple. Close the emails. Put your phone away. Stop what you're doing and give the person in front of you your 100% attention. Technique number 5. Remember their name. I asked all of you to sit down except for, what was your name? No, except for Benedict. I asked you all to sit down except for Benedict. And then I asked her her name, and I remembered it, and I repeated it. One of the quickest ways to build rapport with a complete stranger is to remember and say their name. When we hear our names, it makes us feel important. It makes us feel recognized. But I know there will be people in the audience now thinking, I'm not very good at remembering names. That's just not me. Well, neither was I. I would be on stage and I would forget the person's name and it would kill the rapport. And I knew I had to fix that. So I started practicing and I realized remembering somebody's name is a skill. And what have we learned about skills? You can practice them. They can be improved. The best technique I've got for remembering a name is what I like to call use it or lose it, which means when I ask somebody their name, I have to use it 2 to 5 times in the first minute, otherwise I will lose it. That's my technique. So I asked Benedict your name. I said, hello, Benedict. Hey, Benedict, you have picked a card. It could have been a red card or that. Yeah, okay, so Benedict, the card. I'm naturally just weaving it in the first minute, that 3 to 5 times. Once I've done that, it's now locked in. Not forever, but long enough for this interaction to take place. Sorry, Benedict. I'll see you in 2 years. Hello, Benedict. So that is use it or lose it. Remember their names. Technique number 6. Be positive. Throughout that, oh no, I just realized that's happened. I don't know what's happened there. Anyway. A bonus technique. Things are going to happen. Roll with the punches. No. Technique number 6. Be positive. Throughout that entire 2 minutes and 12 seconds, I was 100% positive. If you give people a good, positive first experience, they'll come back for more. But here is the thing. I love this phrase. We are either radiators or drains. A radiator gives off energy, and a drain sucks the energy out of the room, and it sucks the energy out of us. Who would you rather spend your time with? So when you are meeting people for the first time and you want to build that connection, try and be a radiator. A radiator always finds the positives. Even if you're having a bad day, you're late, you've overslept, you've had a flat tire. If somebody asks you for the first time, you're meeting them, you're trying to build rapport, how is your day going? You focus on the positives. You say, It was a bit tricky to begin with, but I'm here now and I'm looking forward to X, Y, and Z. Find the positives. And technique number 7, arguably the most important technique. If you were to ignore everything I've said up to now, that would be a shame. But if you just did this, it would transform your interactions, because technique number 7 is care about your audience. How do I trick my audience into thinking that I care about them? I don't trick them. Every time I am in front of an audience, large or small, in that moment, at my core, I genuinely care about that audience. And when you go into a situation with that mindset, instantly you are less interested in yourself. You're less interested in what you can get from the scenario. And because you care, you're now interested about them. You are curious about what is going on in their lives, and you're curious about how I can add value. So those were my 7 secret techniques. So remember, next time you are having an interaction, you need to instantly engage and connect with an audience. Adopt that confident body language. Force them to be present, those interesting, engaging questions. If you need to, get a physical commitment. You must be 100% present. Remember their name. Be positive and care about your audience. So here is my challenge to you. Which of those techniques are you going to take away with you today? Which ones are you going to apply to your interactions going forward? What if eventually you could apply all 7? Imagine the connections you would be able to make within 2 minutes and 12 seconds. I've been Ben Hanlin. Thank you for listening.